Today, for the first live stream, what we have to do is make a new spindle. So we're taking a set of tracks, which we got all along the wall right here, and we're making a heavy duty sort of set. So we're going to make an 8-lug version. You can see we got the sprockets right here, and that's going to get an 8-lug hub just like this, right? So that'll bolt in there. But the problem is, this is for our heavy tracks, which you see up there on the rack, that red track system. But our snow tracks are usually rated lighter, so they use a smaller hub like this and a smaller spindle. So now in order to make this work, we can't just swap the parts over because give me a second to get in my chair. We can't just swap the parts over because the hubs are different lengths, different heights, which will offset our sprocket too far one way. So what we're going to do is make a spindle like this one with all these diameters, and to take these big bearings, which will work with that hub, and we're going to shorten it to have the same overall length as our current snow spindle. So that's going to be part 1. And then for part 2 of our live event, which might be tomorrow or probably a couple days later, is we're going to take a hub and do the same thing. Is we're going to shorten it so that the hub is the same length as our snow hub. And then once complete, we'll have a heavy duty version of the snow system that customers can special order. So we're going to do this all in the turret lathe. You're going to watch me set up the turret lathe. If I make any mistakes, you're going to see that too. And I guarantee I probably will make one, but this is the billet that we're going to use. So that's 1018 cold finish. That's what that's made from. So we're going to chuck that in the lathe and turn it down. Put a thread on it. The only thing we're not going to do today in this video is put the cotter pin hole in it, because it's another process. We'll do that on the milling machine. That's a whole other deal. But here's the drawing. So basically what we're doing, comparing these two spindles, is we're taking 7/8 of an inch out of the stump end, okay, 0.875, and then we're taking 1/8 of an inch out of the seal surface, right, 0.125, which is right here, and then we're taking 870 thousandths basically right out of the between the bearing distance. So these bearings are actually going to be a little bit closer together than they were in the HD tracks, but they'll be fine for what we're going to do. So that overall should bring the length of our spindle back to be comparable with the snow spindle. So we've got our drawing here. We'll get set up on the lathe, and yeah, I guess I should have been getting ready sooner, because we've got to turn those jaws around on the old turret lathe. And while we're at it, I'm going to put a little bit of music on here. Epidemic sound. We can listen to that without having any copyright issues. Is it playing? Get it on. There. So I don't know if anybody, we got 3 people watching. I'm probably not going to monitor the chat too much, so you're basically just going to be following along with me. But if you see anything that you have any questions about, let me know, and we'll see if I catch them and if I can address them. So I need to get my shop's a bit of a mess here, but that's kind of normal for me. I work alone, so I don't worry about it a whole lot. But I need this little driver, and I need my Allen head socket to turn the jaws around. And I wonder if might be in this toolbox. Probably not though. I thought I'd save that socket somewhere special, because I use it a lot, but apparently I didn't. So, I believe this is the socket. And then we need the adapter, which is here, because we're going up the 1/2-inch anvil. That back. And we need a little flat screwdriver. Okay. All right. One, two, three, four. Get these other two over here. Come on. 5, 6. Get our air hose around here so we can blow some of that dust off. Make sure that the jaws seat properly. One, two, three, okay. That should be good. Throw these in there for now in case I need them. And set this up here for a minute while we open up the jaws and get that in there. Bigger. That's clean. Okay, that's snug for now. Next thing we have to do, we're only going to use the turret for one tool when we make the spindle, and that's going to be for our geometric threader. So we don't need this drill in here. So take this and put it away, and we'll get our geometric, which is right here. Okay, that should be good there. Fine, coarse, and fine. So we're set up with this. Come on. We're set up with this currently for 1-inch thread. Let's see what we're listening to. Okay, we're set up for 1-inch thread, but we got to go to 1.5 inches. That is 1.5 inches. 1, 2. I could have had this already done, but I guess you'll get to see the whole process. Said this is my first ever live, so not likely to be polished just yet. So to get this out, we got to pull that release mechanism. I'm just trying to remember how that works. Yeah, there. So we pull that release mechanism. That lets us move the handle just far enough to disengage the chasers. And our chasers are numbered. What do we got? This one's number 2. So let's start at number 1. We'll shove this one back in there for now. Or try to. Start at number 1. So that's 3, A2, A4, A1. So we'll just confirm the thread is correct. So yeah, that's the thread we need. That's probably going to take a little bit of screwing around to dial this thread in, but we'll get it. Okay, that's 1. This one's 2. Okay, what do we got here? That's 4. That's 3, so that makes this 2. That should be 3, which is this one. A3. And then 4. Try and get that out of there. It's a little tight. Must be some dirt in there. All right, so that gets them in the ballpark. Now we just got to adjust them all until this thing will close again. There we go. So that's in the threading position, but we may have to adjust with these 2 screws when we get time to thread it. We may have to adjust you know, our gain here. We've got a roughing setting and a fine setting. We'll start on the roughing settings, a little looser. And I'm going to check to see if I have a castle nut. I've got a small castle nut, but my big castle nut, I'll guarantee, is up. Or is it up there? I bet you I've got one over here in a bin somewhere. Look at that. So that's the castle nut we're going to use to test. And we see what we're shooting for here. Right? Okay, so now we've got our geometric in there. We've got their jaws flipped around. We've got the stock in there. We'll put our chasers away. And I'm gonna get a rag to wipe my hands off, and then we'll get fired up with this thing and on to the next step. Okay. So, unplug it. Now this old machine is 3-phase, so we got to turn on the roto phase, which is going to buzz a bit, but necessary. The compressor's on, that'll hammer later on when we use it, but hopefully not a whole lot. And music up a little bit. Okay, so geometrics in. Now, this is our drawing. Probably the first thing we have to do is set our tool diameter, because being unplugged, it most likely lost its position. So we'll take a couple light cuts off the outside first, and then measure it. See, like it's saying it's -6 right now, so it's clearly out to lunch. We know that that's 3.5, so we're going to give it a starting point at X 3.5, and then we'll adjust that. We'll adjust that once we get a couple cuts off of it and get a measurement. Okay. Now we're going to run at. All right. So before we do that, we need to set our levers on the lathe. So what I've done for spindles, you can see all my lever positions up there. So I mean, like, the other way to set this is to use all these charts, right, and then read the handle positions. But what I have to do is every time I do it, I have to research what the surface feet per minute is, figure out the feed rate and the RPM and all that crap. So what I did, just to make it super simple for this machine, is I figured it out once, and then I, used a marker to put the handle positions on the wall. So all I have to do is just go through and make sure that the handles all match, and then we'll be going the right speed. So that's in the right spot. That's in the right spot. That's in the right spot. So I was making spindles the other day, so they're probably already set to the right position. Why am I showing 3 holes there? Because there is 3 holes, so that's got to be there, and this one's got to be in the middle hole. Don't really know why that matters, because we're only going to be using it for threading, and we do that by hand, but I must have done it for some reason. Anyway, so we're in low range right now. This motor has 2 speeds. It's a 5 and 10 horsepower motor, and you shift it by moving this foot switch. So that basically doubles the RPM of the motor, and then all our other shifting is done here in the transmission. So right now we're spinning 800 RPM, which is too fast, but I think according to that we're going to turn 625, which is right here. So we'll pull that down. We got to go on the low side with the foot switch. All the silver line buttons here, all the silver back buttons, or not buttons, but they're all low range, and then all the black ones are high range on the foot. So, and then I'll just shove this in, and it'll automatically start itself up. And then once we get our tool diameter set, then we're going to set our stops. So okay, I'm probably going to screw up here a few times, considering I'm being watched. I'm not super fond of how far that's sticking out from the jaws. Normally what I would do when I was making the other spindles, they're a little bit longer, and I put a live center in the end, but I'm going to try and get away with it without. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll drill it and put a live center in. But I think for this job, this one's a bit shorter. All the problems I had with noise were out close to the end anyway. So I'm hopeful that, yeah, hoping that we'll get along fine here. But we'll get a good clean cut off of this. And then we will measure it and set our tool diameter. We're doing a finish. So put it in reverse. We'll dial in just so we're touching. Just take a skim cut off of it. And whatever diameter that measures out at, we're not going to touch the cross slide, but we're going to shut it off. And whatever that measures out at is what we'll set the DRO to. Okay, so we'll get our caliper set to zeros, and then we'll measure this. Okay, we're gonna have to get out of the way a little bit more. So, based on that, we're 3.4735. We'll take another look. Now I'm showing 3.470 when it's on the part. 3.470 will be what we'll call it. So we're 3.45. So our X is going to be 3.470. Enter, and then when we get close to our diameters, we will remeasure just to verify so we don't take too much material off, but for now that's good enough. So the next thing we're going to do is face it so that we can get our zero off the end, and we'll do that in low range. Back and forward. Take a slightly larger cut off. Take one more fine cut. So that's our Y. So we're just gonna set our Y to 0. And then we're gonna measure everything from here in. Okay, so now it's time to set our slide. So to do that, we'll take our drawing and bring it here, and our first stop, we're taking off the outside diameter, so 5.29 inches. So we want to dial this in and set our, this is going to be position number 1. And do we have a flat screwdriver right here? We do. So there's little safety locks on each screw so they can't move during the job. So we have to back that off. And then we'll look at the DRO here. That's the nice thing about the DRO in a turret lathe. It makes it really, really easy to set up. Now, I'm thinking of two things at the same time here. So 5.2, we'll probably get it to kick off around there. So the question is now, how far out do we want to go out with the screw? I think what we want to do is go in with it and then move this out one more position, right? So this cam is adjustable, but we don't want to let these screws hang out too far, just because, well, there's a couple reasons, but less accurate, I guess. Okay, and then we'll move it into number 1 position in 5.63. So that's too far. And we'll screw it back out. There's a little bit of trial and error here to get it all right. 5.42. 5.3. We're getting close. 5.281, and we want to stop at what? 5.290. So we're going to stop short of 5.29. Like that's our, as far as the machine will go. We don't want to go right to 5.290 because if there's any error here, it will, you know, take us beyond our limit. So we want to leave a little bit of material on for the final pass, and then we're going to go and set all our lengths and then set all our diameters with like a couple thou skim cut, and that will finish the part out. So that's number 1 is set. So now we can dial it back here and lock that in place. And then, so 1 is set. Now that it's locked, 5.280, that leaves us 10 thousandths. So now the next one is 4.380. So 4.380 on the DRO. We'll say we'll stop at 4.370 to give us 10 thousandths. We got to bring this screw out pretty well in line with that. So I think we can do that without moving that cam. So we'll screw that out. Clock it 2 times, 4.5, and we want to be 4.380. So we're going to go a little bit more, 4.480, 4.426, 4.388, we're almost there, 4.355, too far, 4.368, another couple thou, 4.368, 4.371. That's about 10 thousandths short. So we're going to stop it there and lock it in place. The next one's 3.380. So for 3.380, we're going to go to the next hole because we don't want to screw out any farther than that. So we'll actually turn this one in a long ways, and then we'll move that cam out to the next position. Now I'm curious, I'm watching this live stream here, I'm curious if it's going to tell me what my battery is. I should be watching on here. So we're 31 minutes in. That's my biggest fear, is that we're going to lose the battery well before the stream is over, but yes, I know it may have been interrupted, but it's not going to tell me what the battery is. So I have a provision for that. I have a backpack, so I'll get that sorted out, and next time we do a live, it will be it'll be attached permanently, but just so it doesn't happen again. Anyway, so where are we at? So number 3, 1, 2, 3, 2.125. So we're going to bring the cam out 1 more notch and then run it into the 3. So we got to screw that in a good distance. .7. I feel like I'm doing something wrong here. No, that's why, because we're supposed to be at 3.380 for number 3. I was reading number 4. So that's 4.37. The next one's going to be 3.380, which is out a good bit. The actual spindle won't take very long once we get this set up. It's just the initial setup that takes the longest. .2, 3.165 are going too far. 3.2, 3.280, 3.342. So we'll go with 3.370 is our target. 3.350, 359, 3.371. I'm going to call that good right there. And then the next one will be 2.5. So that will be number 4. And we're going to try and screw that all the way out. Might be pushing my luck going out this far, but we're going to see what it does. 2.4, 2.278, 2.243, so 2.240, 10 thou short of 2.5. Wait a second. No, I'm out to lunch here. Should be 2.4. Okay, so we're not going to be able to get this one out far enough. So we're going to run the cam out one more position. And then we'll set it from here. Which means we're going to keep threading this thing in. And we're at 1.5. .1. We might have to go out. I don't know if we're going to get this thing in far enough to get to the next position. 2.34. We got to go to 2.490 is our target. 2.480. .492, we'll call that good. We're still 8 thousandths short. And the last stop will be at 1.5. So that's number 5. And we're 1.399. Okay. 1.497, 1.487, 1.487, 1.482. Okay, what's going on here? 1.482, 1.503, 1.497, 1.491. We'll call that good. 9 thousandths short. So if we go over our list now, we'll start back at number 1. We're 2 positions in on the cam, and we'll turn our thing to number 1, which actually ends up being here so that it lines up with the cam. So we'll run that in, and that should read 3.370 ish, 3.367, 68, close enough. One more position on the cam, and then we'll bottom out. We should be at 2.490, 2.489, close enough. And this one should be 1.5, should be 1.490, 1.489, all kinds. So put that back to number 1. Okay, in 2 notches on the cam. And I'm gonna set this up on the turret. And hope for the best here. So we're at 625 RPM. All our levers are set. All our stops are set. Right now we're in facing direction, so push that in to turn diameter. And I want to make sure I'm not missing something, so I'm not going to take super heavy cuts off this because we're only being held in here. I think the rule of thumb is like three times bar diameter maybe stick out, but I don't even trust that because we're only held by about 2 inch of jaw, and that can jiggle and wiggle. So we're going to actually squeeze this sucker good and tight with the extension, and we're going to hope for the best. Like I said, if it gets noisy, it's not a big deal. We'll put the live center in, but I'm trying to avoid that stage if I can. So our first diameter we're going to turn down to is 2.844. So this is a 3.5 inch diameter. So I think we're only going to take enough cut off it to make a chip, which would be I didn't put my passes on there. First pass 1.753. So I was on my small spindles, I was taking a 1/4 inch per cut, which was like an 1/8 inch depth of cut. So for 3.5, I could go theoretically to 3 inches. That might be greedy, so we'll go to 3.25. No, I couldn't go to 3 inches. Go to 3.25. Anyway, too much talking. I got a feeling this is gonna bite me in the ass. But we're gonna go to 3.250 and see what happens. All right. So we're taking a cut. We're making nice chips. No noise. Seems to be holding on pretty good. So let's let that sucker go. Now if you watch, I'll step back here, you'll watch when that thing runs into that cam, it's going to push that rod in, which will disconnect or disengage the feed lever. And that should happen probably 20 thousandths or so short of our target depth. Point you at it here. There you go, see, automatically. So it stopped us at 5.205. And we're going to 5.290. So what I do is I crank this handle the rest of the way and get us to 5.277, and then bring my Z out, or my cross slide out. And now, so we turn it to 3 inches. We're going to go down to 3. We turned it to 3.25. Now we're going to go down to 3 inches and turn again. And then our last cut will get us in the ballpark of the 2.844. Hopefully. So we're not using any coolant. I don't like to use coolant if I don't have to. I'm using all carbide tooling. All the coolant tends to do is make a mess. I can build a big shroud over this to contain the mess, but then I can't see what I'm doing. And I found that running them dry like this, I probably would spend more on coolant than I do on inserts. The inserts last a really long time. The one downside is the part will warm up from the work, but I'll cool it before I test fit the bearing. And yeah, I've never had a problem doing it. So let's just take a quick measurement off that to see how close our our diameter matches. So we did a cut right around 3 inches. I expected to be within a couple thousandths, but so we're 2.983. So we're about 13 thousandths off of what I had set. So that can't be right. Yeah, 2.844. So 2.983. Let's just take a couple thousandths off this. So we're 2.981 on the DRO. We'll see how close we can get. 2.978. So we're within 3 thousandths. 2.978. So we're still going to leave a bit of room on there for our finished cut because we don't know exactly how that's going to turn out, but so we want to go, it's 2.844. We're going to leave 15 thousandths, so we're going to leave 2.860. We'll turn that 2.860 and do one last cut. So before we go too far, said I'm nervous. I want to take some extra measurements. Normally I'd have this all dialed right in fancy, but 2.861. We're within a couple thousandths, so we should be good. Actually gonna go 5 more thousandths. $2.855. There'll be less material that the back cut has to take off. It's our first diameter. That'd be the seal diameter. The next one, if you remember, we set this up, we only have to rotate that one position and our cam will stay in the same place, and we're going to turn that one down to 2.248. So we're going to probably stop at 2.260. So right now we're 2.844. We'll take another 1/4 inch off, so we'll turn at like 625. At 2.6 should be good. A little bit aggressive there now. I'm taking a bit more than I probably should, but it's holding it. A little bit noisy out at the end in the cut, you can see, but as it's getting further in, it's cleaning up now. When we get out here more, I'll take smaller cuts. I'll be a little bit more conservative. So this should stop at 4.370 on the, we'll call it a Y coordinate, but it's actually the Z coordinate on a lathe. Talk to the people in China that made that DRO. 4.294, and we want to go to 4.3 I think 4.370, 4.368, 369. And then we'll do another cut. And we'll take this down to, oh man, 2.6, and we want to go to 2.248. So 6.5, 4. Let's go a little bit conservative. Take a smaller cut. We'll go to 2.4, and then we'll go to our final diameter. See if that makes a chip. Yeah, 2.4 diameter. We want to stop at 2.260. Okay, we'll dial in. This will be our last cut. 2.260. And just for insurance, we'll just cut that far. Double check our measurement. Make sure we're in the ballpark. 2.259, so within 1,000. So now ideally, like, we're going to do a back cut on this. Ideally, if I was doing a whole whack of these, I would set this so precisely that the finished cut would actually be a turning cut. But for the first couple, there's always a little bit of adjustment and whatnot that you got to account for, so I like to just leave myself a little bit of wiggle room and then take it off going backwards. It gives me a nicer surface finish too. So okay, so now position number 3, we got to move the cam out 1 notch, and we're going to turn that to 2 1/8. Now this is a between bearings diameter, so it really doesn't matter. It's just to give a little bit of room for the bearing to exist, and it's only a little bit less than the 2.248, but we don't have to worry about being, you know, critical here, because the diameter of this could be out 20 thousandths and it wouldn't matter at all. So we're going to go 2.135 maybe. And if we hear the noise, that's telling me it doesn't like being out that far. So now that should stop at I need to stop here for a second. I feel like I did something wrong. 2.2, there's something. 1, 2, 3.380 is where this one should stop, according to that. All right. So we'll see where it stops. 3.300. We'll take it up to 3.366, 369. So that's close enough. Go to position number 4. Bring the cam out 1 more. And then we're going to take diameter 1.998. So we're going to turn it down to like 2 inches and 10 thousandths. So 2.010. And now that one should stop at 2.5. see what it does. .418, and we'll take it by hand to 2.488, which is 10 thou short, which is what we want. Now we got to turn down our last diameter, the 1.5 inch diameter, that we'll put our thread on. So for 2 inches, we're going to go down to 1. We're going to do this in like 3 cuts. So we'll go down to 1.8. I don't want to get too greedy out at the end. And that's stopped at 1.417. We'll take it to 1.490. So we did that cut at 1.8. We're going to do this cut at like 1.6. See it there? This really, in terms of like surface feet per minute, I should be spinning this a lot faster. Problem is you can't stand by the machine if you do. You just get peppered with really hot chips. So I run it a little slower and I take a little extra time, and at the end of the day it's not a big deal. So we're going to turn this one like only 5 thousandths over. Okay, so that's all our diameters roughed and all our depths roughed. So we're not going to use the stops anymore. Everything's going to be done with the DRO. So what we're going to our finished depth cuts, we're going to go all along, do our depths, get those all where we want them, and then we're going to come back, spin it twice as fast, and do a back turn on everything to get it really close to the diameter that we want it to be. So, but before we do that, we need our bearings, which are over here for test fitting, and we need our castle nut is also over here. So that should be everything we need. Okay. Here we go. So we'll start with our first true depth, which is 5.290. 5.2, we'll get it right there. And then we'll just run that in by hand to depth. And then the next depth, 4.380. And then the next one really doesn't matter because this is just clearance for the bearing. 3.380. And the next one, 2.5. And the last one, 1.5. Okay, so that's all our depths are finished. So what we're gonna do when we back cut, I'll run this, I'll hold it with my hand, I'll set the diameter, but when I get really close to the edge, I'm just gonna screw it in like a tenth of a turn or whatnot, just to put a little bit of a taper on the last eighth of an inch. Makes it a little easier for that bearing to start on there, and I'll do that at every one. Could do it with a file after too, I suppose, but I find this works pretty good for me. And then I'll knock the sharpness of the corners off as well. So anyway, first thing we got to do is put our feed in reverse. Next thing we got to do, start the spindle, wind her out in high, and then before we do a cut, we're just going to do a little test. I always like to check, because if it goes that way, we just ruin the part, right? So 2.844 is our target. We're going to go to like 2.846 and try our bearing. Actually, this is for the seal, so we'll just measure this one. 2.851, 65, 2.844. And there we go, a nice surface finish and a little step. Okay? So before we get to the critical ones, we're going to see how close the final diameter is to what was showing on the DRO. I got 2.846. 2.845. So we're just a little bit strong. I think we had that set to 2.844. Being a thousandths over is not going to matter for the seal, but it will make a difference on the bearing. So let's just see what happens. 2.844. We'll take one more cut. There, so that was 2.844 for sure. And I did take a very fine amount of material off. I doubt you could see it in the GoPro, but let's see what the caliper measures. So the caliper is showing 2.845. So the caliper is 1/1000th of an inch difference than the DRO. So we're going to leave it like that. That gives me 1/1000th of insurance, because I can always take a little bit more off. So this next one, we're going to turn to 2.248. So if I turn it to 2.248, it should be 2.249 in real life, which means the bearing should be tight going on. I might have to take another skim off it, but we'll see. 2.259, 2.248. Let's see what happens. Okay. Before we go too far, let's see if the bearing fits. We are super close, right? I don't know if we can get away with just cooling the spindle. 2.250. So we're gonna take this down. We're 0.002 oversized right now according to the caliper. I'm trying to take one more thousandth off. And then while we're waiting, oh, she didn't like that. We'll just cool that down just a little bit and it will shrink ever so slightly to what, you know, what its normal diameter would be at ambient room temperature or close to it. But this is about the only thing I actually use coolant for. You can see the mess it makes. Okay. Let's see how close we are now. We're showing 2.248 on the caliper. So if that's right, our bearing should go on. See, it so badly wants to go on there. It's so close. See, perfect fit. That's a perfect bearing fit right there. Just a little bit stubborn to start means that there's not a whole lot of wiggle room, right? But it's not so tight. It's not so tight that it will be jammed on there. Okay, so we've got that diameter set perfectly. Now we don't really have to do anything with this. This is our like gap diameter, but we are going to just take a little skim cut off it just because we can, and then that'll, you know, clean up the edge or whatnot. So we'll spin her up to speed here. Once that stops, and then that diameter is 2.125. So 2.12875, close enough. In gear, away we go. Now the next diameter that we want is 1.998. Okay, so we know that our diameter is going to be about 1,000 or so strong, so we're going to go right for it. And then we'll measure and see how close we are. So right now it's saying 2.001. So we have like a 0.003 discrepancy there right now. Take another one at 1.998. So there's a little bit of wiggle and, you know, a little bit of wiggle room there. .999 down probably to 2 or 3 thousandths under 1.5 inch, so that we can put a nice thread on it, and then our thread won't be right to a sharp point. It'll have a little bit of a flat spot on the top so we don't cut our fingers on it. So 1.497. Go for 1.49. Yeah. And I'm gonna do a pretty aggressive, that's my start angle, right? So that'll help the chaser go on, be a little easier on the actual teeth of the chaser. You can, I don't know if you can see right there. They kind of take a beating, those first ones. So we measure that. That's saying exactly 1.5. So we're gonna do one more cut. Try to get the last 2/1000ths off. So a lot of that inaccuracy, some of it is coming from the fact that we're cutting backwards as opposed to forward, and some of it is just spring back, right? So we're actually, when we cut this material, especially being out this far, you need pressure, and what's happening is that pressure is also causing the material to incrementally deflect away from the cutting tool, and then, you know, when we're done cutting, it comes back. So when it deflects away, it leaves that diameter just slightly larger. So by taking the last cut as a very fine cut, very little pressure, very less, you know, a lot less deflection. There. That should get us where we want to go. Okay, I'm going to start this back up, and I'm going to knock the sharp off the corners there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing still here. I'm wearing the GoPro around my neck. I could wear it on my head. I've got a headgear, but I'm afraid that as I look around with my head so much, it might make it hard for you to watch. So, you know, you don't get to see quite as much this way, but it's a bit more stable than it would be otherwise. So we're just going to take the sharpness off those corners. Make sure that there's nothing on there that can cut our hands. Is put thread on it. Before I do, get the special sauce here. I know there's way better fluids out there for turning threads, but I've had good luck with good old-fashioned gear oil. It seems to stick to the metal pretty good. Now, hopefully, there we go. What we're going to have to do is set the depth of this, right? So what we want to do is get it really close. That's where it's going to stop, but we're going to make it stop a lot sooner than that, but it'll all make sense here in a second once I find my tools. My ratchet. Where is my ratchet? I had it a while ago. Put it in here, didn't I? So what we have to do is set the stop on the turret. Because what's going to happen is we're going to allow, it's going to thread itself on there. It's like basically just going to screw itself on the end of the bar. Let's see if I turn this down again. It's going to screw itself on the end of the bar, which will pull the turret ahead with it. I'll help it with the handle, but we get to a point where we want the turret to stop, because in order for this to disengage, it actually has to come apart here. There's a trip mechanism that you'll see operate, and that needs to happen at a specific point so that it doesn't crash into the shoulder of the next step, right? So that's what we're going to set now. And the way we're going to set it, we've got a special socket here, is we're going to do it right on here. And then what we'll do is we'll watch. This is the kick out lever for the feed. When that thing starts to move, like right now, I can put that on, and when that trips, we'll know we're very close to where we need to go. I just need to make sure that that's the right one. So we're going to get set up for live streaming in here. If you've watched my channel at all, we're kind of changing. Started the vlog, which is more of, you know, out in the world, you know, enjoying the things that we build in the shop, and then the lives in the shop are basically going to be like running the machines, and, you know, if we have to do any work to the airboat or to the forklift or run the plasma table, like all the things that happen within here, we'll do on the lives. Mostly we're doing them as lives because it takes less time. Another problem I had with doing the videos was the amount of time it took me to, like, not only edit them, which was significant, but the time it took me to just get my work done, right? Because I have to frame every shot and think about every shot, and then, you know, if it's not right, you got to do it over again. And by the end of the day, I'd take 3 or 4 times longer to complete a task than I would otherwise, and I just had to stop, right? Because I have to, it has to be a profitable venture, and I can't put it on YouTube for $3 a video if it's costing me $300 in labor to do so. So with the lives, it's a little different. Like, it's not as polished and it's a lot longer, but I'm hoping that you know, the people that like this kind of content won't mind that format of it, and I'll be able to produce a lot more of it that way. You know, when the time comes that, you know, perhaps the channel gets bigger and we get more followers, we start making more money, we'll start thinking about, you know, hiring some help in the shop to maybe do some video stuff. But for the moment, we're just going to do it like this and see how you guys respond. Now we're getting really close to the end. I'm starting to wonder if I grabbed the wrong stopper here, because that should have kicked out by now. So that's tool position 3, and we're working on position 3, but we're still so far out. I don't understand why we're so far out. Like, if I look inside here and see where that's supposed to stop on that finger, I don't think I can thread this screw in long enough, and I don't know why, because I've done this. I know why. It's because the turret's in the wrong place. I think we have to slide the saddle back. Ooh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So might have to do that though. Okay. Well, that's what we have to do. We have to slide the saddle back. So I'm going to need to get 17mm wrench, I think it is. Oh, this kind of sucks. Got a 19. It's either a 19 or a 17. I'm going to take a 19 and 18. And 17. Some of them are bolts, and then there's also Allen heads in there, but I bet you it's not any of these. It's probably more. Yeah, it's like a 22. I know it's metric for sure. It's a Japanese made machine. 21. Where's our 22 at? 22. So I bought this lathe from a liquidation center in British Columbia, and then brought it here and completely restored it. You'd kind of never know by how dirty it is right now, but that's because it's a working machine. You know, I don't have time to just polish it every day, but it's for an old manual machine, it's been pretty reliable. You know, when we restored it, it didn't cut any corners. Like, I didn't just put a coat of paint on it. We took every single part apart and cleaned it, replaced all side. It'll pump it not only to the slide but down to the saddle. Like, this thing has no wear. 1967, and it's as tight as I'm sure it was the day it was day it came off the lot. Anyway, I don't want to type my password in there with you guys watching. Now need a bigger one. One, two. And we'll just put the hook on here as a bumper. We'll push that back so you can see the saddle moving as I go. You don't want to go too far. Because you want to keep your tools as close to the work you're doing at all times, but you got to leave yourself enough room also for your tools to work. So So we'll clamp it back down here. And my 22. So this is backed off. Okay, so that's that. Put our tools in there. Now we're gonna get back into setting our threader. So now I've come to the stop. You can see that moving right there. And we're about 1/8 of an inch short, but that's still not enough because you'll see it'll crash, right? So we're probably gonna find that we have to set this a couple times, but we're gonna set it short for starters. And then we can let it go more after, because it's better if it disengages soon. Better if it disengages sooner than later, because it won't crash if it disengages soon. So I think that's going to be too short. You can see I pull that out all the way and there's still 1/8 of an inch. So I'm gonna be a little bit greedy. And then I think that's as close as I feel comfortable right at the moment. I'm gonna thread that. I'm gonna thread it at 130 RPM. Give it a little shot of oil, engage the cutters, and I hope everything is right. I hope everything is right. And there we are. We're taking a cut off right now. Now see, watch it disengage, see? So now it disengaged short of where I wanted to, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and you can see it's a fairly rough cut, like a really big flat spot on it. So we probably have to dial our threads in, but we're also on the rough setting, so we'll bring this back. We'll put it on the fine setting, and we're gonna try and go another 1/8 of an inch. So we'll do that right here. So we'll set it to 0, and we'll start with another, what, 100, and like, I gotta be careful too, because these chasers are tapered. So where I see that last cut, it's actually, the chaser went farther than that. So let's go another 100 thousandths of an inch, and see how that works out. And we'll be able to tell right on here, right? See it moving? I'm gonna go 120 thousandths. And then I'm gonna start it. I don't like to, with a fine thread like this, I don't like to start out here because it can grab before it needs to grab and actually bugger up the thread. So I'm gonna push my luck and try and engage it on the thread, and might not let me do that because of how I got it set. Okay. We've got our thread cut, but it's not finished yet. It ran up pretty close to the end, but it didn't crash. But for insurance, we're gonna come back 20 thousandths. Okay. Now, we need to try and get that next cut in there. With the fine, I should have had it probably set to fine anyway. But doesn't really matter. Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Oh, I'm talking to myself here now. Be patient with me while I think this through, and then I'll try and explain what I'm up to. So we know, or we think we know, that the castle nut's not going to thread on there because the thread is too big. I should have done it because it's a finer thread. You can actually cut them on the fine setting. You don't have to do it in 2 stages. But because I wanted to be a little bit cautious, you know. I'm a little bit nervous to start this thing. Okay, I think we're gonna go on okay. So now I've got it set to the fine, right? But I'm scared that if I just, you know, wind it out and send it on, it's gonna catch out of time and then peel off the threads I just made. But I'm starting it just incrementally till I know that it's gonna be in the right place.